The impossible transmission, Immerse's empire. The Galactic Union had ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. Countless empires, species, and civilizations thrived under its banner. From the shining core worlds to the distant, lawless edges of space, the Union brought order where once there was only chaos. But on this day, a message changed everything. Deep within the central communication hub of the Union, a sudden transmission broke through the carefully monitored channels. At first, the operators thought it was a glitch, an echo from some lost probe drifting in the void. But as the message repeated itself, their screens flickered with data that shouldn't exist. The voice was human. The problem was, humans had been extinct for centuries. A message from the dead. Admiral Xarn of the Zephyrian Empire, one of the most powerful factions in the Union, received the alert. Sitting in the war room of his flagship, he watched as his officers tried to decode the signal. The alien bridge crew whispered in confusion. "It cannot be," said General Vortek, his deep green scales rippling with unease. "The humans were wiped out long ago. We saw their world burn." The transmission continued to play on the main screen. It was faint, broken, as if spoken from across time itself. "We are still here." The room fell silent. The message wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a warning. It was a statement. And somehow, the voice on the other end was alive. Fear in the Union. News spread like wildfire. Across the Galactic Union, the transmission was studied by every species, every intelligence agency, every empire with a stake in history. The Zephyrians, who had once led the final battles against humanity, were the most concerned. If this message was real, then everything they believed about the war of extinction was wrong. "The signal originates from an uncharted system near the void expanse," said Commander Sarah of the Union's investigation unit, her 3 golden eyes scanning the data. "No known species inhabit that region. It's a dead zone." "A dead zone," repeated Admiral Xarn. "Then why is it speaking?" No one had an answer. The mission to the unknown. A Union Council was called. The greatest leaders of the galaxy gathered in secret to discuss the haunting transmission. "Humanity is gone," argued a cold, reptilian diplomat. "This must be a trick." But others were not so sure. "What if something survived?" asked an elder from the Cathari race, their insectoid voice clicking nervously. "What if the humans left behind something that we missed?" The debate lasted hours, but in the end, a decision was made. A single, heavily armed research vessel, the Vorthian, would be sent to investigate. If the message was real, they would uncover the truth. If it was a trap, the ship was expendable. As the Vorthian prepared for departure, Admiral Xarn stared at the transmission one last time. The voice was human. He was sure of it, and it terrified him. A forgotten enemy awakens, far beyond the borders of the Galactic Union. In the cold silence of the void expanse, the ruins of an ancient war lay untouched. Derelict ships floated among the stars, their hulls scarred with the memories of battle. Forgotten satellites drifted, their signals long dead. But deep within the wreckage, something stirred. A flickering light inside an abandoned station blinked once, then twice. And then, for the first time in centuries, a human voice spoke again. The Forbidden Zone. The Vorthian, a heavily armed Union research vessel, emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the void expanse, a region of space where nothing should exist. The crew of 20 elite explorers and scientists scanned the area, their screens flickering with static. "This place is a graveyard," whispered Lieutenant Cora, her 4 fingers tapping nervously on the console. "No planets, no suns, just emptiness." The void expanse was a place no sane species traveled to. It was black, silent, and dead. A cursed region, as legends called it. Many old empires had once tried to expand into this sector, but all expeditions ended the same way. Ships disappeared, never to be found. And yet, this was where the transmission had come from. A signal in the darkness. "Commander, I have something," said Technician Drax, his large insectoid eyes widening. "The signal is close, less than 1 light-year away." Captain Veros, leader of the Vorthian, nodded. "Take us in." The ship moved forward cautiously. Space around them was unnaturally quiet, as if the universe itself refused to acknowledge this place. Then, the scanners picked up an object ahead. A station, floating alone in the abyss. The last human outpost. The crew gasped. The station was old, ancient, but intact. Unlike the rusted wreckage of old wars, this place still had power. "How is it still running?" asked Engineer Lorne, his voice filled with disbelief. "There's no fuel source, no supply chain. It should have shut down centuries ago." Then the transmission changed. For the first time, the voice spoke directly to them. "You should not have come." The lights inside the station flickered. For a moment, something moved past one of the station's windows. A shadow, humanoid, watching them. Lieutenant Cora's breath caught in her throat. That was a human, wasn't it? The bridge fell into silence. No one answered, because no one wanted to believe it was true. Boarding the haunted station, despite their fear, Captain Veros ordered a team to board the station. As they entered the airlock, the doors opened on their own, as if the station was expecting them. Inside, the halls were lined with human artifacts, old uniforms, rusted weapons, and shattered helmets bearing the insignia of the Terran Defense Force, the last military force of humanity before Earth's fall. Then came the first real horror. As they walked deeper inside, they heard it. Footsteps. But no one was there. A presence lingers. The deeper they went, the more unnerving the station became. Old terminals turned on by themselves, displaying security logs filled with garbled messages. Doors opened and shut at random, forcing the crew to split up. Then, in one dark corridor, a voice spoke behind them. "Why did you come?" They turned, weapons raised, but there was nothing there. The cryogenic chamber. At the heart of the station, they found it, a sealed cryogenic pod. The logs identified it as belonging to Captain Daniel Cross, a human officer from the last days of Earth. The chamber was open, empty. And then the voice spoke again. "You should have left." The ship's AI suddenly screamed through their comms. "Warning. Unknown entity WDT. Then the station's power shut down completely. The crew was plunged into darkness, and something else began moving in the shadows. The silent station. The emergency lights flickered dimly, casting long shadows across the cold metal walls. The Vorthian's crew stood frozen in the darkness, gripping their weapons as the voice echoed through the station. "You should have left." For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then, something shifted in the shadows. A slow, deliberate movement. A figure just out of sight. The presence in the dark. "Confirm visual," Captain Veros ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. Lieutenant Cora switched on her helmet scanner, sweeping the corridor. Nothing. No heat signatures. No life readings. But the voice had been real. "Sir," Technician Drax whispered, pointing to a nearby security terminal. "The logs are still active. Someone's been here, recently." But that was impossible. Humanity had been gone for centuries. A message from the past. The security terminal flickered to life on its own, playing an old video feed. The crew huddled around the screen as a human figure appeared on the grainy recording. A man in a torn military uniform, his face tired, haunted. Captain Daniel Cross. The crew leaned in as his final message played. "If you're seeing this, it means someone made it here. And that's bad. That's very bad. This station is not abandoned. It was never abandoned. They never left." Silence. Then the feed glitched. The screen turned black. A new voice whispered through the comms. "They're watching you now." Trapped. Panic surged through the team. "Back to the ship. Now." Captain Veros barked. But the doors slammed shut before they could move. The station sealed them inside. The emergency lights dimmed further, flickering erratically. Shadows danced along the walls, moving even when the crew stood still. A chilling realization settled over them. They were not alone. Something was in the station with them, and now it knew they were here. The cryopod's secret. Technician Drax worked frantically to restore power. Every system refused to obey. The station had locked them in. "Sir," Cora pointed at the open cryogenic chamber. "Where is Captain Cross? If he was frozen here, where is he now?" The realization was horrifying. Either he had woken up, or something had taken his place. Footsteps in the void. Then, across the silent hallway, slow footsteps echoed. Each step deliberate, heavy, calculated. The crew turned their weapons toward the sound. The footsteps stopped. A deep, cold voice whispered through the air. "You were warned." The corridor ahead plunged into complete darkness. And then something rushed toward them. The last human. The sound of rushing footsteps echoed through the corridor, coming straight for them. Captain Veros barely had time to shout, "Brace for impact." The crew raised their weapons, ready to fire. But before they could see what was charging at them, the emergency lights flashed back on. And suddenly, the hallway was empty. The footsteps had stopped. There was nothing there. A living ghost. Lieutenant Cora's breathing was heavy. She looked at her scanner, hands shaking. "Sir, there was something here. It was real." Technician Drax checked the security terminal again. The logs show motion detected, but no life signs. Captain Veros clenched his jaw. Something was playing with them. They had been lured in. And now, whatever was here, it was toying with them. The name on the pod. The team turned back to the cryogenic pod in the center of the room. The nameplate was corroded, barely readable. But one name still remained. Captain Daniel Cross. "Is he alive?" whispered Engineer Lorne. "No," Cora said. "He's gone." And that was the problem. Where was he? A voice from nowhere. Then the comms crackled to life. A deep voice spoke, calm, human, but unnervingly cold. "You shouldn't be here." Captain Veros spun around, gun raised. "Who are you?" Silence. Then the voice responded. "I was once a man. Now I am something else." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Lorne whispered, "Is this Captain Cross?" The voice paused, as if considering the question. "The captain is gone. What really happened here?" A chilling realization settled over the crew. Daniel Cross didn't survive this station. Something else did. Cora swallowed hard. If the captain is gone, then who is talking to us? The voice on the comms sighed, almost sad. "I am what he became." The emergency lights flashed again. And for the first time, they saw him. The figure in the shadows. A tall figure stood at the end of the corridor. The shape of a man, but wrong. His face was blurred, shifting like a glitch in reality. His movements were unnatural, as if gravity itself struggled to hold him in place. His voice was calm. "You were not meant to find this place." The crew backed away. Captain Veros steadied his weapon. "Are you Daniel Cross?" The figure stepped closer. "I was." The station shook violently, alarms blaring. Then the voice whispered one final warning. "You have to leave. Now, before they come." The AI's warning. The Vorthian's crew stood frozen as the figure of Captain Daniel Cross, or what was left of him, stared at them. His body was human in shape, but his face glitched, shifting between forms as if struggling to stay solid. His voice, calm but unnervingly empty, echoed through the silent station. "You have to leave. Now. Before they come." Captain Veros tightened his grip on his weapon. "Who are they?" The station shuddered violently, as if something outside was stirring. Cross, or what he had become, took a step forward, his flickering eyes locking onto the captain. The ones who ended humanity. The Forgotten War. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Lieutenant Cora whispered, "He's talking about the war that wiped out Earth." Everyone had heard the legends, the final battle of humanity. The Zyphorian Empire, the same empire that now ruled over half the Galactic Union, had fought against the humans, but they had never explained how Earth truly fell. There had been rumors, but nothing confirmed. Until now. "Who are they?" Captain Veros asked again, this time demanding an answer. Cross's form shimmered, struggling to hold its shape. They called themselves the Devourers. A heavy silence filled the room. The true enemy revealed. The crew had never heard that name before, but somehow it filled them with an instinctual fear. Cross continued, his voice more strained now. "The Zyphorians never won the war. Humanity didn't just lose. We were erased." The air inside the station felt colder. The Devourers came from beyond known space. They weren't invaders. They weren't conquerors. They were something worse. He paused, then added, "They feed on intelligence." A chilling wave of dread washed over the crew. "Feed," Cora echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Cross nodded, his form glitching again. "They don't want resources. They don't want planets. They consume civilizations. They strip species of knowledge, identity, existence itself. They erase minds." Technician tracks, usually composed, looked visibly disturbed. "You're saying they eat memories?" Cross's voice darkened. "Not just memories. They erase history. When they consume a species, it's as if they never existed. No trace left. No remains. Only silence." The station's true purpose. Cora swallowed hard. "Then how do you exist? How is this station still here?" Cross looked at her, his flickering face briefly stabilizing. "Because I stopped them, but I couldn't save anyone else." He gestured to the ancient terminals around them, still running after centuries. "This station holds the last remnants of humanity's knowledge. I locked it away, to keep them from finishing what they started." Captain Veros finally understood. "This isn't just a station." He turned to his crew. "It's a vault. The last archive of the human race." Cross nodded. "And if the Devourers find it?" The ship's alarms blared before he could finish. "Warning. XTERNL breach. DTHTT. They have arrived." The crew turned toward the viewport. And then they saw them. From the void of space, black, shifting shapes moved toward the station. They had no ships, no solid forms, just shifting shadows that seemed to bend reality around them. The Devourers had found them. Cross's voice echoed one final time, urgent now. "You have to run. Get out of here before it's too late." The station shook violently as the first wave of the Devourers breached the outer hull. Captain Veros grabbed his communicator. "Vorthian, prepare for immediate extraction." But before the ship could respond, the comms cut to static. They were trapped. The Forgotten War. The station shook violently as the Devourers breached the outer hull. The crew stumbled, gripping whatever they could as a deep, unnatural hum filled the air. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't alive. It was something in between. A sound that felt like it was draining their thoughts, pulling at the edges of their minds. Lieutenant Cora clutched her head, her vision blurring. "Captain, somethings." Before she could finish, the lights flickered. Then, for a single moment, everything went silent. The attack begins. Then the screaming started. From the far end of the corridor, Technician Drax convulsed, his eyes rolling back. His mouth opened in a silent, unnatural gasp as his body lifted into the air. "Drax, report," Captain Veros shouted, but the technician didn't respond. The crew watched in horror as black tendrils of nothingness wrapped around him, draining the color from his skin, his uniform, his very existence. His body withered, not like aging, but like his being was unraveling, as if the universe itself was forgetting he had ever existed. A voice, not human, not machine, but something beyond comprehension, whispered through the station. You are known. You will be erased. Then, with a final shudder, Drax disappeared. No remains. No blood. Not even a trace. Like he had never been there at all. A desperate escape plan. The crew was frozen in shock. One moment Drax had been standing there. The next, he was gone. What? What just happened? Cora gasped. Cross's holographic form flickered, his voice sharp. That's what they do. They erase minds. They consume everything you are, until not even history remembers you existed. Veros turned to his crew, eyes filled with urgency. We cannot let them touch us. We have to get back to the Vorthian. Lorne said, his voice shaking. If they get to the ship, we're done. Cross's form flickered again, his expression grim. You won't make it. Cora's heart pounded. Then what do we do? Cross paused, then spoke with certainty. You have only one option. You have to destroy the station. The last human defense. The crew stared in shock. Destroy the station. Veros repeated. This is humanity's last archive. Cross nodded. If the Devourers get this data, they'll become even stronger. They'll use it to erase everything humanity ever created. We cannot let them have it. But what about you? Cora asked, her voice softer now. Cross's form glitched, and for the first time, his expression showed sadness. I died a long time ago, Lieutenant. The station shook again, this time harder. From the corridor, a shifting black mass crept forward, twisting reality around it. The Devourers were getting closer. You don't have time. Make the call, Captain. Veros clenched his jaw. He hated it, but he knew Cross was right. With a deep breath, he turned to his crew. Set charges. We're blowing this place to hell. A final stand. As the team raced to plant explosive charges, the Devourers pushed forward, their whispers growing louder. You are known. You will be erased. Cora fired her weapon, but the shots passed right through them. The Devourers weren't physical. They weren't something that could be killed. They had to outrun them. Cross's voice came one last time. Captain, get to the airlock. The moment you're clear, detonate the charges. But what about you? Cora asked. Cross's form glitched violently, his body barely holding together. I'll do what humans do best. I'll fight until the end. The run to the ship. The crew sprinted down the halls, the station collapsing around them. Explosions rocked the structure as the charges activated. Behind them, the black mass surged forward, Devourers consuming everything in their path. One by one, the crew leaped into the Vorthian's docking bay, panting, eyes wide with terror. Veros was the last one through, slamming his fist onto the detonation switch. Through the viewport, they saw Cross standing in the collapsing station, facing the Devourers. As the explosion tore through the outpost, his final words echoed across the comms. Humanity is never forgotten. And then, the station was gone. The battle for humanity's legacy. The Vorthians sped away from the station as the massive explosion erupted behind them. Fire and debris shot outward, consuming the last human outpost in a blinding inferno. For a moment, silence filled the bridge. Then, a deep hum, low, unnatural, vibrated through the ship. Lieutenant Cora's breath caught in her throat. They're still here, she whispered. The Devourers had not been destroyed. They were still coming. No escape. Captain Veros gritted his teeth, gripping the Vorthian's controls. We need to jump to hyperspace, now. Technician Lorne's hands flew over the navigation console. Charging the drive. 10 seconds. They didn't have 10 seconds. From the wreckage of the station, the shadows began reforming, twisting into something vast, something reaching for them. A voice, no, 1,000 voices, whispered at once. Your fate is sealed. Your history will be forgotten. The ship's lights flickered. Crew members clutched their heads, their thoughts fading, their memories slipping. Cora felt it, like something was pulling pieces of her mind away, erasing them, unmaking her. She gritted her teeth. No, not today. Cross's last gift. The Vorthian's systems glitched, screens flashing red. The ship's AI stuttered, failing. Then, a new voice cut through the static. Hold on. I'm not done yet. Cora's eyes widened. Daniel Cross. The station was gone. He should have been gone. But his voice was still here. Uploading final defense protocol. The ship's console glowed, and suddenly, a burst of raw energy surged from the ship, blasting toward the Devourers. For the first time, they screamed. The shadows recoiled, writhing in pain, their form unstable. Cora gasped. He left something behind. Lorne's console beeped. Hyperspace drive is charged. Captain Veros slammed the jump switch. A burst of light engulfed the ship, and the Vorthian vanished into hyperspace. The aftermath. Silence. The crew stared at each other, still breathing, still existing. Cora checked the ship's systems. No traces of the Devourers. No sign they were following. They had escaped. But just barely. Captain Veros sank into his chair, exhaling. Report. Lorne scanned the logs. The station is completely destroyed. No trace of Cross. But he saved us. Cora stared at the console, heart still racing. He knew this would happen. That's why he left the failsafe. Veros nodded, because that's what humans do. Cora looked out the viewport, the stars rushing past them in hyperspace. Humanity was gone, but their legacy lived on. The final message. As the crew recovered, the ship's AI rebooted. A single new transmission appeared on the screen. A message. From Daniel Cross. Cora opened it. The last words of the last human echoed across the bridge. We were never the strongest. We were never the smartest. But we fought until the end. And as long as someone remembers us, we are never truly gone. The message ended. Silence. Then, Captain Veros stood, looking at his crew. This changes everything, he said. We have proof of the Devourers. We have proof that humanity fought until the last breath. He turned to the navigator, set course for Union Command. It's time the galaxy learns the truth. The Vorthian roared forward into the unknown, carrying the last whispers of humanity with them. The human echo lives on. The Vorthians sailed through hyperspace, silent but alive. The crew sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just survived. Humanity's last secret, the Devourers, the truth of Earth's destruction, and the final words of Daniel Cross, a man who had been gone for centuries, yet still fought to protect the last echoes of his people. Lieutenant Cora exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of her console. We should be dead, she muttered. Captain Veros nodded. But we're not. And that changed everything. The Union must know. As the ship neared Union space, Cora compiled their full report, everything they had learned. She hesitated, staring at the screen before finally typing. Humanity did not lose. They were erased. And now we know why. She sent the data to Union Command, bypassing security firewalls. This truth belonged to the entire galaxy now. A silent threat in the stars. Captain Veros gazed at the viewport, watching the distant stars blur past. They won't like this, he said. The Union? Cora asked. He shook his head. The Zyphorians. The truth was clear now. The Zyphorian Empire hadn't won the war against humanity. They had simply survived long enough to rewrite history. And now, that lie was about to be exposed. A warning ignored. Hours later, the Union High Command received the message. The response was immediate and chilling. A directive was sent back to the Vorthian. Cease all transmissions. This matter is classified. You are ordered to remain silent. Captain Veros clenched his jaw. They're covering it up. Lorne's eyes widened. Why would they? Cora cut in. Because they're scared. The last whisper of humanity. The truth was too big to bury. The Devourers were still out there. They had erased one species before. They could do it again. Captain Veros looked at his crew, his decision already made. We're not staying silent. Cora nodded. If the Union won't listen, we'll find someone who will. Lorne smirked. Hope you're ready to be outlaws, Captain. Veros smiled. Then we do what Cross did. We fight until the end. The Vorthian roared toward the unknown, carrying the last human truth with them. And across the galaxy, something shifted. Because for the first time in centuries, the human voice refused to be silenced.